Welcome back to the City Current Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're always honored to bring you inspiring stories of individuals and organizations making a difference and powering the good. And we love talking about projects and redevelopment, real estate, and so much more. We're honored to be joined by Rick Smith. He's the Director of Real Estate with Finard Properties. Rick, how are you doing?
Man, I'm doing great. I appreciate the opportunity to sit down with you for a few minutes, talk about some of the stuff we're doing. So thank you for the invite.
Absolutely. So we're going to talk about real estate, redevelopment, and so much more for sure. And so before we dive into the current projects and the redevelopment and some really cool news, let's kind of back up. Give us an overview for Finard Properties.
Sure. We are based out of Boston. Finard is a third generation real estate company, the Finard family up in Boston. It was started by Murray Finard, handed down to his son, Bill Finard, and now to his son, Murray's grandson. I think I did that right. That's not my specialty there. And Todd Finard, who is currently leading the company. They had the opportunity to get into the Memphis market in 1986, did that with the purchase of Poplar Plaza and Whitehaven Plaza, which we still have. We grew a little bit. We bought and redeveloped something in downtown, did the same in Germantown over there in the old super block, as it's known. We have since sold both of those, but we've held on to those two original properties. And it's kind of a cool story. Murray Finard, the first generation, was actually a tenant in a building up in Boston. The landlord was kind of getting out of the business. Murray had the opportunity to buy the business, that building, because it was half vacant. He leased it up and was making more money leasing the building than he was doing his business. And that's kind of how the company started. A tenant became a landlord and said, hey, this isn't bad. And now here I am talking with you.
Yeah, absolutely. What was, when you go back and look at the history and the ties to Memphis, and I just think it's neat to hear when companies outside of the Memphis area choose to invest in Memphis, like, what goes into the decision-making process? In other words, why Memphis? So talk about some of the why Memphis storylines.
Jeremy, best I know, I was not with the company in 86. I have been with them. I think I'm in my 21st year. I should have counted that up before we got on here. But they were just in an expanding mode in the 80s. They had done a lot up in the entire New England area, even outside of Boston and New York and Maine and all of that. And those two properties that were developed by the Goodwins, if you might know, back in the 50s, were on the market. And Finard, that family, was up there seeking to buy, and somehow or another they crossed paths, got a hold of the little bit about the locations and the history and the stories, and made a move and have been locally involved ever since. So that's really the main part that I know of. They were seeking to grow, saw this opportunity to them way down south, and they moved on that. So it's been kind of cool, and it's a good family, and they've certainly been good to me and my family. So I'm glad they had an interest.
Absolutely. You mentioned the history, long history, obviously going back to the 50s. Give us some of the historical perspective for the properties, the cool storylines.
Well, to me, Jeremy, everybody I talk to, if you're from Memphis, you have at least a Poplar Plaza story, some story of something related to the property, and that's always fun. Quite frankly, we really and truly feel it a privilege to own such a landmark property. Talking about that history with Poplar Plaza, they were drawing plans for this in the late 40s, and this area, Poplar and Highland, was pretty darn rural. The WKNO folks did a Beyond the Parkways thing years ago, and spent several minutes on the development of this. And when it was constructed, there was nothing like it. Shopping centers were not that big. And it was just a big, big story, literally made some national press. So that was just really cool. And there were a lot of firsts. One of the big ones, the first escalator in Memphis was installed at Poplar Plaza up there in what was the Lowenstein's building. And that building was actually designed, Jeremy, as a single-story building with the ability to put a second floor on it. It's pretty cool. We have some of the hand-drawn plans still in our office. Some of the pages are framed and on the wall. But they were having so much success, even during construction, it was immediately built as the two-story building with the basement that people know it.
Yeah.
A lot of people like to hear of the Elvis stories over in the old theater. And it was just, you look at that, Jeremy, and of course, now we've got Osaka and other things in that building. But when it was a theater, if you looked at it with modern day mindset, you would go, that doesn't work. There's no parking, because we know these theaters with huge parking fields. Well, back then, businesses truly closed up at 5 and 6 o'clock. And so they just parked throughout the shopping center and walked over there. But the room is still there. The chairs have been removed. There was a private viewing room with a little stairway, and that was called the Elvis viewing room. And he would come up and go up there and be able to watch the movie at normal times, normal hours. And everybody always likes that story. So, that's a pretty cool one. I guess the other thing is, when it was built, it was also a fallout shelter. And almost every one of these buildings, Jeremy, have basements underneath them. And not just basements, but I mean reinforced basements. Used to have a bunch of fallout shelter signs and directions. And I think somewhere, I should have thought about this and brought it. There was even civil defense food that was vacuum packed. And somewhere around here, we have a can of biscuits stamped as civil defense, and it was stored in the basements. So if it happened, everybody in the near vicinity, they run down there and pop open a can of biscuits and survive, I guess, is what it was meant to be. So that's some of the cool stuff, about Poplar Plaza. There's other stories, but that's kind of some of the highlights we hit. Whitehaven Plaza was really, again, it was built after Poplar Plaza. They're kind of sister properties. They had the success here. And so then they were looking, same family, the Goodwin family, down south. And Whitehaven has been through many changes over the years. But it was a rural but very fast growing and popular area at the time, a very well-to-do area of Memphis. And so the Goodwins went down there and built that thing with the theater and bowling alleys and huge. It's actually the same size as Poplar Plaza. Now, regretfully, we've knocked down some buildings down there because they just were at a point you couldn't even redevelop them. One thing that was funny, when we did knock down the theater down there, we had multiple people that were trying to get on there to get bricks from it because Elvis had gone to the movies down there. And I went up to some guy, what are you doing, man? He had gone over the fence taped area. Man, I got to get some bricks, man. Elvis went to the movies here. So, that was kind of cool, but it was something that served that area, that was growing in a residential market in a large way. And quite frankly, we think a lot of positive things are going on in Whitehaven right now. A lot. I think it's at its best point, Jeremy, personally. Yeah, I'm a little bit biased, but personally, it's at its best point, we think, that we've seen in the last 20 years. There's a lot of optimism, We've done a handful of real estate deals, one that involved Blue Cross Blue Shield recently down there. And man, those things weren't going on 10, 12, 15 years ago.
Carry that forward into some of the good news stories, the redevelopment, the vision for the future. Talk about kind of where we're headed with all this.
Well, down in Whitehaven, Jeremy, again, there's activity, there's new development going on, and that just hasn't really happened. And there's residential development going on. We have been working with the city of Memphis on the 3.0 plan. We really want to work hard to have Whitehaven Plaza be a part of that. As in all real estate deals, there's some hurdles we're working on, but I know the city wants that. We hosted a big 1 week long charrette study, got tons of feedback from the community and the folks living there. And, you know, Jeremy, one thing that I have learned, you go down there and you talk to the people and you have these meetings, the residents of Whitehaven, they are as mad about crime as you and I are. And they're as upset about the gangs and the gangs leading kids astray as you and I are. But you can't embrace that until you're sitting across the table from them. So I'll keep it on myself. I learned a ton by getting to know the community. All of that mixed together now with people willing to put some money in down there and put a store down in there, and all the exodus of all the name brands left. Well, they're starting to come back. We did a deal with Margarita's Restaurant, which is, they have multiple locations all around the Mid-South. They came to us, wanted to go into Whitehaven. We were so excited about a solid sit-down restaurant concept down there. So we're looking forward from that. We're not trying to say, you know, Whitehaven is going to be the next Collierville or what have you. We're not trying to say that. We're saying Whitehaven is having some of its best times and interest. We're seeing that, and we think we're participating in that. We hope we can play our role.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. Good news. Carry that forward when you look at Poplar Plaza.
Well, Poplar is a little bit different. It's a wonderful shopping center. It's geographically located in the center of Memphis. Poplar and Highland, we don't have to sell that. It's one of the main and mains. But as well as the shopping center has done, it is ready for its next life. And we have wrestled for years with what that looks like, Jeremy. And development projects always have so many versions and so many dreams, and we have truly lived those out. But we feel definitely it is time for the next phase. Our biggest focus has been an effort to put a mixed use development on that corner. So that old building, the Lowenstein's Dillard's building with the window and all its history, would be raised. It would go down to the ground and then come back up. Now, we hadn't been able to put the pieces together for that, largely because I think it's 7 tenants that have to be either bought out or relocated or moved. We have worked on that very hard, but there's still one tenant. I'm not going to name them because they're still our tenant and we love them. But we haven't gotten to a signature point with them. So right now, we're married to that lease and the term they have, and we certainly want to honor that. We're trying to work with them to, what are our options? Can we move you over here? But if we move you over here, then there's others. Now, Jeremy, we've been through that. When we did the big Kroger expansion, we actually had 9 tenants that we had to do that with. And we were able to eventually pull that off and get the new Kroger concept. And they were great to work with. And we love that. we're just doing that again now, 10 years later, saying, well, we want to do it and give Poplar Plaza really its next life that we hope might be a mixed use concept. Now, there's other things going on. That corner building, Jeremy, that we just talked about coming down, that whole second floor up there is vacant. And we dream about entertainment concepts of some sort. That what if you could bring that second floor back to life? Maybe the building doesn't have to go. Man, we talk about that every week in some form or fashion. We really do. But right now, we're just working with that tenant mix. Is there a way to get everybody relocated as well as honor their term? And look, their desire to be at Poplar Plaza. We're glad we didn't go to these tenants and they go, yeah, we'll leave. They still want to be here. So it's not all that upsetting. It's not all that bad that it's not just a layup to get through those deals.
Well, it's a good challenge to have, like you mentioned. At the same time, though, it's balancing the present with the future and the plans for the future. And so it's always the balancing act. Talk about how the community can help, because obviously supporting your tenants, that's a big piece of this, so that their success is your success. But talk about how we can help your efforts.
Well, I think you mentioned the first one, just loyalty. And that's not just to Finard. We certainly benefit from it, but to be patrons of the shopping center in your neighborhood. Jeremy, a lot's going on in our city, and particularly the last few weeks, and we would be foolish to not say that, man, our antennas are up in trying to deter crime. But there's some balance in there. We've got to be responsible. We've got to look around, and we can't let that win. I'm not saying that's easy, Jeremy. I'm saying we talk about that every day within Finard Properties, and how can we manage this in that way. And the community, we have to come together. That's not a new message coming from me. Y'all have been great about that message. And I think that's the first thing. We are certainly glad to hear from people. There's a lot of famous neighborhoods in every direction around the center. I hate to start mentioning some because then I'll leave off others and somebody will watch this. I guess I could just say, well, Jeremy told me to mention that one. But they've been faithful, they've been loyal, and they have given us feedback. And we want to hear that. That helps when you're trying to give any development, an aged development like we are, its next life. The feedback you hope to hear, you've got negative and positive, but if we're trying to go a direction and everybody's saying no way, no how, then that's going to give us pause.
So carry that into how we can reach out. So obviously social media, website, where do we go to connect in and learn more about Finard Properties, but also too about the tenants and supporting the projects and the real estate?
Sure. I appreciate that. We have recently revamped and done a website just for Poplar Plaza. In the past, it had been part of the Finard Properties website. It's new. Right now, it's a rather small website, but it's out there. It has information about the shops and the hours and contact. It has information about our vacants. Man, if there's somebody out there that is starting a business or wanting to have a second location, maybe they're out east, something, gosh, we want to talk to them. We recently lost McAllister's chose not to renew, and that was a sad one for us, but it's a cool little building right there in the center of basically the four-way traffic of Poplar. And we think there's just some tenant out there that would be cool and would be the next thing. Within the website, there's a page for that. And then certainly, I don't know how we do it here, but I can provide my email and my phone number And I'm more than happy to speak with anybody about either of these properties and that one as well.
Yeah, go ahead and say off your phone number and email, and that makes it easy.
Sure. So phone is 901-458-8922. That is to my office, which is actually inside of Poplar Plaza, 901-458-8922. And then my email is rsmith@finardproperties.com. Finard is with an F, Finard. Properties is plural. And I will get back to you. Be glad to.
Well, absolutely love having you come on the show and sharing the history, but also to the future and the vision. So, Rick, thank you for all you and your amazing team do. Thank you for coming on the show.
Well, again, I appreciate the invite. I love what y'all are doing, advertising, speaking about the positive things in our city. You and I off camera at one point had a chance. There's tons of positive things. Whole newscast could be done on positive, terrific things about the city of Memphis. That's not kind of the way the news travels right now, but you're trying to do that. So I applaud you for that, Jeremy, and I wish you the best and hope you have a lot of success at doing so.